Good afternoon, boys and girls. I hope you're all doing well and staying safe and healthy. Can't wait to see you again in Bible class really soon, hopefully. Today's lesson, we're going to be talking about Adonijah making himself king. For many years, David had ruled Israel, and he had many problems, but he had ruled well, and God had blessed him with honor and riches. David was now an old man. The people knew that King David couldn't live much longer, and they wondered who would take his place. Who would be king after he died? God had a plan, one that David accepted, but David had a son who was not willing to accept it. So today our lesson comes from the Bible in 1 Kings chapter 1. David had a son. He was named Adonijah, and he was Absalom's brother. Last week we talked about Absalom. In fact, they were very much alike. Like Absalom, he was very handsome and he also wanted to be king. In his old age, David was taken to his bed. That means he had to lay in bed. He couldn't do much else. Adonijah said, I will be king. He prepared chariots and horsemen and 50 men to ride before him through the streets of Jerusalem. He thought that if he acted like a king, that the people would think he was a king. He even talked to Joab, the general of David's army, and some other important men into supporting him. One day, Adonijah decided to have a great feast. In 1 Kings 1:9 says that he slew sheep and oxen and fat cattle and called all his brethren, the king's sons, and all the men of Judah, the king's servants. There were some who were not invited. Nathan the prophet and Solomon, one of Adonijah's brothers, were among those who were left out. They weren't invited. Nathan the prophet knew what Adonijah was doing. He was very troubled. He knew that God had chosen Solomon, another of David's sons, to take his place as king. Nathan went to Bathsheba, Solomon's mother, and verse 11 in 1 Kings 1 says that Nathan spoke to her, saying, Hast thou not heard that Adonijah has made himself king, and David doesn't even know about it? He told her to go talk to David. If Adonijah really became king, then her life as well as the life of her son Solomon would be in danger. David needed to know what Adonijah was doing. After Bathsheba talked to King David, then he, Nathan, would go in to see David and tell him that everything Bathsheba said was true. Nathan told David that many were saying, God save King Adonijah. Verse 25. King David thought that the best thing to do would be to go ahead and have Solomon anointed as the king or made king. So the word anointed means one chosen by God. Jewish kings were called God's anointed. This name is also given to Jesus, our king. He told Nathan, Take my mule and have Solomon ride it. Doesn't it seem strange that a king would ride a mule? A mule to us seems like a lowly animal. Why didn't David have a beautiful horse to ride? Well, God told his kings not to raise horses, and he also told them not to go back to Egypt to get horses. And that's found in Deuteronomy chapter 17. Horses were used to pull war chariots, and God did not want his people to become dependent on horses to win their battles. He wanted them to depend and trust in him. David obeyed God, and that is why he told Nathan to get his mule for Solomon. Go with him to Gihon, David told Nathan, and in 1 Kings chapter 1 and verse 34 and 35, he said, And let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there, king over Israel, and blow ye the trumpet, and say, God save King Solomon. Then we shall come up after him, that he may come and sit upon my throne, for he shall be king in my stead, and I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and Judah. Nathan did as David commanded. The Bible tells us that all the people piped with pipes and rejoiced with great joy, so that the earth actually split open with the sound of them. Adonijah and his guests were having their feast when they heard that Solomon was made king. The guests left the feast and hurried home, but Adonijah was afraid to go home because he was afraid of what Solomon the king might do to him. He ran to the tabernacle, thinking that it might be a safe place for him. When Solomon heard where Adonijah was, he sent for him. Solomon said if he would do what was right, he would always be treated kindly. Adonijah bowed before King Solomon, and Solomon let him go back to his home in peace. God had a plan. King David had a plan. Their plan was the same, that Solomon would be the next king of Israel. Adonijah would have been a lot happier if he had accepted God's plan instead of trying to exchange it for his own plan. So the same is true for us, boys and girls. Today, our country has laws. Our parents have rules for us to live by, just the same way that David had plans for his children. God has the authority to expect us to obey him, and our parents have the authority over us, and they also expect to be obeyed. Adonijah decided he would make the rules for himself when he didn't have the authority to do so. Even worse, he waited until he thought his father could not protect what was his before he tried to take it away from him. Let us never be guilty of wanting something so much that we act like that. We need to be more like the Apostle Paul, who wrote in Philippians 4:11, "For I have learned in whatsoever state I am, therewith to be content." Paul said that wherever he was, regardless of his conditions, that he would be content to work for the Lord. And we should plan our lives in the same way. All right. Thank you.